Now, a couple of days ago, just out of nowhere really, I decided to rank the 2021 grid from 1 to 20, and I'm sure it's something that we've all thought about at some point. I mean, we love to kind of categorize drivers, who's the best, who's the worst, where does everyone else fit in, and I thought, why not just do a video about it? Now, I've done ranking videos in the past. I've ranked the 2021 driver lineups from best to worst, from 1 to 10. I've done my top 5 greatest driver lineups of all time, again, so 1 to 5. However, for this video, I thought a tier list would be a better idea, so I created a custom tier list, which of course will be linked in the description down below. So let me know your thoughts in terms of where you rank all of the drivers, and also let me know in the description down below in terms of what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, because no doubt this is going to be a controversial one. But remember guys, everyone has different opinions, and that's kind of what makes this really fun. So yes, let's jump in and rank the 2021 drivers. So guys, here is the tier list that I have created. Now, I'm not going to go through what each of the tiers mean because, to be honest, number one, they're pretty self-explanatory, and number two, you're going to get the gist in terms of what they really mean when I put the drivers in there. So yeah, let's get into it, and straight away I can put 3 drivers just right off the bat, and that is the rookies. I really did not want to rank the rookies because, in my opinion, when you go into Formula 1, it's almost like a clean slate. You know, obviously what you've done in your junior career is very important, but now is when you really define your career. If I was to rank the rookies, oh, this is going to be controversial right off the bat, I probably would actually say Yuki Tsunoda, then Mick Schumacher, and then Mazepin. But yeah, and anyway, let's get into the other drivers now. And first off, we have Lewis Hamilton. I mean, come on, best of the best. I don't think there's too much explanation needed. He's been dominating Formula 1 for such a long time, and just as a driver, outside of his achievements, he's driving at such an incredibly high level. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So consistent, barely makes any mistakes. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, best of the best in my opinion. Next up, we have Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles Leclerc is actually going in borderline champions, and the reason for that and why he is actually not in best of the best is because I still think he has a little bit of developing to do. He's not on the level of Lewis Hamilton in my opinion. There were a little bit too many incidents in my opinion in 2021, but I do understand that he was in a very difficult car and trying to overdrive it. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, Charles Leclerc is 100% a borderline champion. If you gave him the car right now, it would be a very interesting battle with the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So borderline champion, I think, is a very fair place to put Charles. Next up, Antonio Giovinazzi. Now, straight away at risk. Now, Gio is a driver who, on his day, is a great driver. He's a great midfield driver. He can do a very solid job. But when you look at the likes of Callum Ilott waiting in the wings, when you look at the likes of Robert Schwartzman, a young driver who's, of course, in F2 right now, who I'm sure is going to want to move into Formula 1 as well, Giovinazzi is at risk. I think he didn't do a good enough job against Kimi Raikkonen, in my opinion, and he is at risk at his seat, and I think we could see his final season in Formula 1 if he does not improve. Now, Sebastian Vettel, I have got best of the rest. I feel like, especially when you look at how the tier list is right now, putting him behind Charles Leclerc, I feel like that's only fair, and he's definitely not a quality midfield driver. He doesn't belong there. But I wouldn't, you know, is Sebastian Vettel a borderline champion right now? I mean, he wasn't able to beat Charles Leclerc, and he got demolished by Charles Leclerc last season, and even in 2019, he didn't have a great season, but I think Seb can prove himself. And also, just remember, this is just going into the 2021 season. I'm sure if I did this, you know, in a year's time after the 2021 season, I'd have these drivers in different places, but at the moment, I'm only comfortable with putting Seb in best of the rest, and I do think that he's in a very competitive midfield right now in 2021, and he is fighting for that best of the rest position. So that is where I rank Seb at the moment, and I feel like the drivers that he's going to be with, that is just where I rank him at the moment. So yeah, might be controversial, but there you go, best of the rest in terms of there. Sergio Perez, another great example, also in best of the rest. He's not a borderline champion in my opinion. He doesn't have that qualifying and that raw pace to be a guaranteed borderline champion right here, right now. Of course, I mean, if he does a stunning job against Max Verstappen and potentially beats him and maybe matches him in qualifying, I mean, we're talking a different conversation here. We're talking borderline champion then for Sergio Perez. I mean, if he beats Max, then, I mean, yeah, I'm not even going to think about that right now. I think I'm totally happy with putting Perez in best of the rest because that is where he finished last season. He is a best of the rest driver, one of the absolute top tier, highest in terms of that midfield, and I can't wait to see how he's going to do at Red Bull in 2021. Max Verstappen, I mean, pretty easy, come on. I've made a video about this in 2020 and I still stand by it to this day. In Formula 1, it's Max and Lewis. They're up there, and then everyone else is below them, and you're going to see this in this tier tier list. You know, spoiler alert, no one else is going to go in best of the rest. It's just Max and Lewis, in my opinion. The likes of Charles, he's maybe 5% behind the likes of Verstappen, but you've got to remember that Charles doesn't have as much experience, so he will get there, of course. But at the moment, as I've been saying, and I still stand by it, it's Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. They are in the upper echelon. They are the best drivers on the grid, and everyone else is just trying to catch up and trying to get on their level. Next up, we have George Russell. This will be a highly contentious one. He is a borderline champion. I'm sure many of you guys might not agree with this. Actually, to be honest, my previous video is why I rate George Russell with the likes of Leclerc and Verstappen. Now, I totally stand by it, so if you guys kind of don't agree with me on this one, then definitely go and check that video out in terms of why I really believe that. You might also be wondering, you know, you said that he's as good as Leclerc and Verstappen, so why is he, you know, why is Verstappen not down here and things like that? So again, there are levels to this. I think he is on the level of a Leclerc or Verstappen, but I don't think he is that best of the best. Of course he's not. He's not even scored a single point outside of the Mercedes, but in terms of potential, in terms of talent, right now, George Russell, if he was in the Mercedes right now, he would be a borderline champion, and I think he could give Lewis Hamilton a very good run for his money. So yeah, I've said that about George for years, and I'm going to stand by it. He is a borderline champion right now. Next up, Fernando Alonso. Very, very spicy. The only place I am comfortable putting him right now going into this season is best of the rest. If this was 2018, if this was the end of the 2018 season, best of the best, no doubt about it. Fernando Alonso at the end of 2018, I mean, if he was not in a McLaren, if he was in that Ferrari, he would have took Lewis Hamilton to a title decider, in my opinion. But with those 2 years out, being in a midfield team, being at Alpine, I'm sure he'll be a little bit rusty going into the season. I think he's still going to be fighting for that best of the rest position, and that's kind of the maximum where I'm comfortable putting Fernando at the moment. But again, he's going to surprise this season, and I mean, could he then end up in borderline champions if Alpine get it right in 2022? We're going to wait and see. But in terms of this season going into 2021, Fernando to me is easily in the best of the rest tier. Next up, we have Kimi Räikkönen. Now, to be honest, I think Kimi is almost becoming a little bit underrated. To me, he's a quality midfield driver. I think we underrate, and a lot of people do underrate. And again, I've made a video about this only a few weeks ago in terms of just how good Kimi still is. Even at the age of, what is he, 41? He still beat Giovinazzi, and I think given the right car, for example, if you put Kimi in the McLaren, I think he would do a very solid job. I think a lot of people would actually be surprised at how good Kimi is. So to me, even he's still a great racer. He's still a very solid and consistent finisher. He stays out of trouble. He's maybe not the best qualifier on the grid, but in terms of race day, he was just always up there in 2020, despite being in an Alfa Romeo, which was not a great car. So to me, it just speaks of his longevity and just how good of a driver he really is. Next up, we have Lando Norris. Now, to be honest, there were two drivers who I just kept going backwards and forwards, but I am sticking with this. Lando Norris, I'm going to put him in quality midfield driver. Now, many people might be thinking, you know, why is he not in this tier? And I absolutely would understand if you put him there, but if you want to be in the best of the rest tier, you've got to beat the best of the rest. And the fact is, as close as he was to Carlos Sainz, he didn't beat Carlos Sainz over the past 2 years. So I just can't put him there. Again, best of the rest is the people that you back to finish in that absolute top spot. I mean, if he beats Daniel Ricciardo in 2021, we're talking borderline champion. You know, if at the end of this season, Lando Norris finishes ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, he is going to be in that borderline champions. But at the moment, the fact that he just hasn't been able to beat the best of the rest like a Carlos Sainz, I think quality midfield drivers is, you know, again, he's on that borderline, but that is where I'm kind of happy to put Lando at the moment. But his potential, I think, is absolutely massive going forward. And then Bottas, the other driver, as I mentioned, there were two drivers who I was going backwards and forwards over, and Valtteri Bottas was another one. And in the end, I'm putting him in best of the rest. This will be controversial, no doubt. Many people might be thinking, you know, Valtteri is rubbish, all the rest of it. I actually think that Valtteri has almost become a tiny bit underrated. I'm not saying massively, but I think people are almost disrespecting how good and how close he has been to Lewis Hamilton. When you compare Valtteri Bottas to other number 2 drivers in F1 history, like the likes of Mark Webber and Rubens Barrichello, but Mark Webber specifically, the 2 years that Red Bull were just unbeatable in 2011 and 2013, Mark Webber never came second second in the championship. He never came second. Valtteri Bottas has come second in the past 2 years, so at the very least, even though he's not pushing Lewis Hamilton to the max, he is not a bad driver, and let's not forget what he was able to do in the Williams before he came to Mercedes. He was a best of the rest driver, and he was finishing in those best of the rest positions. So next up, we have Nicholas Latifi, and right from the outset, I'm going to say that he is in the at-risk category. Now, obviously, we have to remember that he's only done 1 season in Formula 1, but he didn't look great, and I do understand that he was at the back of the grid. I totally respect that. I wasn't expecting him to score points consistently over the course of the season, but I just don't think that he had any highlight results over the course of 2020, and to me, he is in that at-risk category because I could name about 5 or 6 drivers who aren't even in Formula 1 who I think could do arguably a better job than Nicholas Latifi did in 2020, but again, he's developing, he's going to get better, but at the moment, I still think that he has something to prove, and that is why I think I've put him at risk with Antonio Giovinazzi. Maybe I've been a bit harsh, I don't know, but that is just where I feel that he is at the moment. Next up, I have got Lance Stroll, and I have got Lance in something to prove. Now, again, on his day, he is a quality midfield driver, no doubt about it. You know, at parts in 2020, he was a quality midfield driver, scoring that pole position in Turkey and also getting that podium in Monza, but he isn't quite there. And the reason why I've got him in something to prove is, even in Monza, for example, he could have won that race and he bottled it at the beginning. He really dipped at the end of last season, and again, I know he was very unlucky with getting, obviously, Corona and also missing a race and also having some reliability issues as well. But he had the chance, especially in Abu Dhabi, that final race I thought was very telling. He had the chance to secure 3rd place in the Constructors for Racing Point, and he wasn't able to. I still feel that he needs to prove something. Obviously, I'm very happy that Sergio Perez was picked up by Red Bull, but when Sergio was dropped and Lance was kept on, I had so many questions, and you know, by the end of the season, the gap between those two in points was very telling, and yeah, I feel that's why Lance Stroll, he still has something to prove. You know, if Aston Martin want to be the next Mercedes, the next dominant team in Formula 1, Lance Stroll does have something to prove in the sense that, does he really belong, and can he really raise his game to the likes of Vettel and Sergio Perez? So yeah, in something to prove, I have got Lance Stroll. Next up, I've got Carlos Sainz, best of the rest, very easy. I mean, he was best of the rest in 2019, and in 2020, again, he did a very solid job, beat Lando Norris 2 years in a row, and I feel like that is a very solid place for him. Best of the rest almost defines him. He is the epitome of best of the rest, and depending on how he does at Ferrari and whether or not, you know, how close he is to Leclerc, maybe even beats Charles Leclerc at Ferrari, that would be a story I'd love to see. I mean, then we're easily moving Carlos Sainz up to a borderline champion, and I actually still think that he does have the potential to one day fight for a world title, and yeah, so that would be very interesting to see. But at the moment, I feel like, you know, very dependable driver, easily one of the best on the grid, and definitely in best of the rest. So only a few drivers left to go. Next up, I've got Esteban Ocon, and similar to Lance Stroll, I've got him in something to prove. Now, yeah, Esteban Ocon, he did not have the greatest 2020 comeback season after missing a year in Formula 1. And again, similar to Lance Stroll, he does have easily you know, he does have the potential to be a quality midfield driver, and on his day, he is a very great driver, a really good qualifier as well, but we just did not see those qualities against Daniel Ricciardo in 2021. I mean, I never expected Ocon to beat Ricciardo, but I definitely thought he was going to get closer, and the fact that he got dominated by Ricciardo by the margin that he did in the championship, and also in terms of the qualifying gap as well, and now with Pierre Gasly and other drivers sniffing around his seat at Alpine, I think he does have something to prove. I think he's got to come out in 2021 and prove why he deserves to be at Alpine ahead of a bunch of other drivers. So that is where I put Esteban Ocon, but again, I think he has the potential to be a quality midfield driver, and maybe one day as well to be one of the best in that midfield as well. So 2 drivers to go, and next up, I have got Daniel Ricciardo. Pretty easy one for me. I've got him in the borderline champions category with Charles Leclerc and George Russell. Now, a lot of people might be thinking that, why is Daniel Ricciardo not up there with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton? And to be honest, don't get me wrong, I love Daniel Ricciardo. He's absolutely amazing, and if McLaren give him a good enough car, especially in 2022, he will challenge for a championship, no doubt about it. One of the safest pair of hands in Formula 1. But having said that, I don't rank him as high as I did Verstappen when they were teammates in in 2017 and 2018, whilst they were very close and almost on the same level, Max was very young, he was still maturing, and Daniel was kind of at the peak of his powers at the time, just like he is right now going into 2021. Max has gone up a level, Max has got even better, and I think even in terms of qualifying, as good as Ricciardo was and the fact that he did dominate Ocon, when we talk about the best of the best category, we're not talking about beating Esteban Ocon, we're talking about beating Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, and I don't think Ricciardo's quali pace is quite as good as those two drivers, so that is why I put him in the borderline champions. And the one thing I do think that would have been very interesting to see is what would have happened if Ferrari took both Daniel Ricciardo instead of Carlos Sainz. I mean, Leclerc versus Ricciardo at Ferrari, that would have been box office. I would have loved to have seen it, but yeah. Well, I guess we'll never know, but certainly in terms of talent at the moment, I rate Daniel Ricciardo on the same level as Charles Leclerc. And so, lastly, we have Pierre Gasly. This will be a controversial one. I put him in quality midfield drivers. Now, the reason why I've ranked him in quality midfield drivers, and by the way, just to kind of clarify, quality midfield drivers is not an insult. That's a really strong category. It's just that when you talk about best of the rest, these are the drivers that have done it over a period of time. I think Pierre Gasly especially, he's had that amazing 2020 breakout season, but he's only had maybe a year and a half. I need to see 2 or 3 years, and then I think he will be, you know, moving up into this category. But at the moment, I need to see a bit more consistency over the course of 2 or 3 years. And these drivers, I mean, especially the likes of Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz, they have done it under pressure. Carlos being the #1 driver at McLaren in 2019 and in 2020. Sergio Perez getting kicked out of Racing Point last year and still coming in at best of the rest. When it comes to Pierre Gasly, I need to see him do it in a pressurized situation where he is the #1 driver and he absolutely has the car at his disposal. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see how he does in 2021. But there you go, guys. That is my tier list of the 2021 drivers. And to be honest, guys, I am pretty happy with it. I mean, to be honest, I think I absolutely smashed it, of course. But guys, as I said right at the beginning of the video, I will have the template for this linked at the top of the description. So you guys can go and do one for yourselves and maybe tag me on Instagram or Twitter to see how our tier lists compare. So yeah, can't wait to see those. And also, of course, let me know in the comments below what you think I got right and what you think I got wrong. It's going to be absolute mayhem, no doubt. Anyway, guys, there you go. I hope you did enjoy this video. Something a little bit different from my channel. I've never done a tier list before, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button. We are getting closer and closer to 100k, so can't wait to get there. Anyway, guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.